Welcome to this week's Into the Wilderness podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Daryl Pace, and the man sitting next to me is Byron Pace, my brother. And for any new listeners, because we do get new listeners every show, we get new emails and messages from people, so we are getting new listeners all the time. This is the UK's largest countryside fishing, shooting, adventure, conservation podcast. It kind of covers it all. That's why
all the outdoors stuff. That's what we like to cover.
Yeah, outdoor.
With an emphasis on hunting and fishing.
Yeah, there is, indeed. And if you want to know more about us, there is previous shows where we've done exchanges with other podcasts, and you can hear all about our background. And more recently, we were just on the Yorkshire Gent podcast, talking all about ourselves.
2 weeks ago from when this podcast goes out. And failing that, go visit our website.
Yep,
www.thepacebrothers.com. On there you will find, I really need to update the spiel about us actually, but that is a work in progress. But there is some stuff about us.
It hasn't been updated for
since we made the website.
2.5. No, in fact, it would be 3 years. 3 years ago, at least, before we updated that.
But there is a lot of other good stuff on there, and there's a blog on there. There's the link to all the podcasts on there, and there is also a shop, which, since I'm bringing it up at this point, I'll mention the few things that I wanted to talk about on the shop. We have all of our merchandising on there. It's growing fairly steadily.
Yep.
We've got some really quite cool designed t-shirts on there. There's a few of the old stock left, and they're heavily discounted.
Only in small and medium.
So go and check that out, because they're almost gone, and then all the new designs as well. We have our coffee, which we've mentioned in the last couple of shows. There is 2 coffees out. There's one called the McNab. Now, if you're not a UK listener, you might not know what the McNab is, but a McNab is, it's kind of, I don't want to say a competition, but it's an achievement.
A challenge or achievement, I guess.
Which there is no medal for. It's just a cool thing to be able to do, which is, within the space of 24 hours, successfully hunt and kill a stag, catch an Atlantic salmon, and shoot a grouse.
If you ask
brace of grouse.
If you ask anyone in the UK about the McNab, they'll know what it is you're talking about. So it's quite a big thing here to, one, have the opportunity to ever do it, but secondly, actually achieve the McNab.
I haven't achieved a McNab yet. I haven't really tried to do it, but I haven't achieved one. So that is the name of one of our coffees, and we are £1 of every bag of coffee goes to help fund conservation and research at the Game and Wildlife Conservation Trust. And the other coffee that we have out is the other spectrum of field sports that we enjoy, which is fishing. That is called the Gilly, which again, if you're, I'm not sure if they use the term Gilly for fishing. I think they say fishing guide in the States, don't they?
It definitely won't be spelt the way
it's
spelt.
Won't be. So Gilly is basically a fishing guide, and that is
spelt the Scottish way
with an H.
Yeah.
So that is our second coffee, and £1 of every bag of that goes towards salmon and trout conservation. They do a lot of hard work lobbying government to change legislation. Their focus is our wild fish species, which is what we're all about.
With an even more of a focus right now on fish farming, which is a big problem in our country and across the globe, actually, not just our country, but they're doing some really good work when it comes to that.
Trying to encourage
make people accountable.
Better practices.
Accountable and better practice. I might add as well that all of our products in the shop, actually, we give 10% towards conservation projects. Basically, unless it's already assigned to something, we'll just have a pot at the end of the year. We will probably have 3 charities or 2 charities, and we'll let the listeners and our followers decide who's going to get it. I think that's what we'll do at the end of the year.
So last time, the money that we had made from the shop, we gave that to something that we were raising money for at the time, which was the Lawairu Sanctuary. for the chimpanzees.
Which, incidentally, we just got an email from last week saying thank you very much. They've received the money, and hopefully we're going to get some pictures and videos in the next few weeks. And they couldn't say thank you enough. So for all those people that if you cast your mind back or you've just started listening and you're listening about chimpanzees, a lot of people donated some money, and our aim was to house a chimpanzee for a year. Well, it was feed and house, everything that went with it, for an entire year.
I can't remember the actual amount. I think we needed to raise 600 and something.
660, and I think in the end we raised almost 900. It was over $900 that we sent them. So
yeah, we did send the money ages ago. By the way, for those people wondering, I thought you sent the money ages ago. Now you're only getting a response. They're really busy doing a good job out there, which is looking after the wildlife. So they've only just had time to get back to us now.
And they did apologise for the late email as well. So we forgive them because they're doing what they're meant to be doing.
On the shop, you will also find the Modern Huntsman magazine. Now, it landed about 2 weeks ago now. We had a whole bunch of pre-orders. We mentioned it. I think we mentioned it on the podcast, but we certainly put it on our social media that we were getting in a bulk order of it, and they're all gone.
They're gone.
So thank you very much for those people who pre-ordered. You should have them. If you don't have them, they're being sent out today. And we have another shipment coming in the next 2 weeks. So if you go onto the shop, you will be able to order Modern Huntsman.
As soon as they arrive, they'll be sent out. So if you order one today, it will be sent out as soon as it arrives, because we're continuously ordering some. And we are, in fact, that will be the cheapest in the UK.
Yeah, so
I think we're in Europe as well.
I think so. We were just trying to. We in the last couple of days we've just been tweaking how it gets shipped for our European followers and listeners and people who use our shop to make sure that it makes sense for you to get it from here rather than get it as a single copy all the way over from the States. So if you order straight off the Modern Huntsman website, which you can do, but it'll cost you close to £30. Whereas we can deliver it for 25. That's what it's on the shop for right now.
So
just because we're one of the stockists and we're ordering
in large volume. The only other thing I think on the shop, we're talking lots about the shop today. Get your wallet out, spend lots of money. Is the car stickers. We talked about this a few weeks ago, and we put a little poll online asking if people would purchase them for a small amount. And we're sending it for cost, so it is. The price of the sticker and the postage is what you're paying for, because we want to run competitions with these car stickers, but also we would love you guys to help us out by having them on your car and
spread the
word of the podcast as well. And what we're going to do from maybe next month, end of next month, when we've got more car stickers out, we're going to start running competitions where if we spot them, basically if we spot a car sticker, then we'll get a prize.
We're going to have to start carrying around stuff in our car.
Yeah.
I just wanted to add, on the Modern Huntsman magazine, if you don't know what that is, you can read a very brief spiel on the shop, but you can visit their website. We did a podcast with the guys behind it maybe 6 months ago when they were trying to basically get the project up and running. I haven't consumed the whole... It's almost insulting to call it a magazine because it's actually more of a book.
It's a book. Yeah.
It's absolutely stunning. It is beautiful.
The photography is amazing, and it is definitely one that you have on a bookshelf, and it's a collection. So, this is number one. You want number one. Yeah. So,
very, very different to any hunting and outdoors magazine you probably have ever read. The only way that I can compare it is the stories in it is a little bit like reading a chapter from one of Aldo Leopold's books. It is very much about the experience. You're not going to find gun reviews in there and talking about ballistics of ammunition. You're talking
advertising.
Or advertising. You're looking at real stories and experiences, and it's a complete breath of fresh air. We're massively supportive of what the guys have done.
One of our pictures is in it.
Yes, and a credit. So go and check that out. It's fantastic. It will definitely blow you away. They've set the bar of where publishing needs to be.
Definitely. Now, before we move on to the very exciting show that we've got ahead, which is an hour and a half long, we have the competitions, which I know you guys all love. And we've got competition winner, and we've got the next competition to be announced. And I think you've actually got something else written down.
I've got a couple of things here. So I'll do the competition since you mentioned it. So the winner of the competition 2 weeks ago, which was to win a vintage Hornady sign, it is unbelievable the amount of entries we get for things like vintage Hornady signs and beer mugs.
It's in the hundreds.
But the winner randomly selected off Instagram was Charlie Hartley. So congratulations, Charlie. Contact us and we will get your address and we'll get that sent out to you. The next competition is to win a set of Smith Optics shooting glasses. Now, we've given a lot of these away, but most of them are actually different. They're not all the same models because they make tons of different types of shooting glasses. So these are the Aegis Arc regular fit glasses. They're not tinted. They're just a straightforward, see-through, clear ballistic glass wraparound safety glasses. So that is what you have a chance to win, and we are going to run a picture competition. So what did we... we decided it was going to be eating local.
Eating local. We're going to run it on Instagram, Facebook, and if you don't use social media, then you can just email the show, podcast@paceproductionsuk.com, and send in the email. And on Instagram, just tag us in the picture, and we save them or screenshot them so that at the end of the 2 weeks, we have got a huge list of people.
So looking forward to your entries on that. Now, I've got a small announcement to make because this came from one of our podcast listeners, and we like to fulfill requests. Slightly, it's not something I've done. It's outwith of something that we've ever talked about. But in Scotland, at Scone Palace, which is just down the road from us here, I actually don't think I wrote down the month, but this year there is the IMCF. Let's see if I can read my writing correctly. The Medieval Full Contact World Championships.
Who knew?
Who would have known? If you want to know more about it, go onto Facebook, or I'm sure you can Google this as well, the Scottish Knights League. And if you want to see what it's all about...
Do they actually joust?
I don't know, but I was told to visit Bohart on YouTube. Bohurt. Bohurt on YouTube, and apparently it's a YouTube channel where there's loads of what these guys are doing.
There was a guy on my old bomb team, and he was trying to organise a stag do where it was a medieval themed, where you went down and you did jousting for the day, but proper jousting, and then it was like a hog roast in a big barn at night, and then the next day it was like sword fighting and like bow and arrows and stuff like that. He got sent away, so no, it didn't.
Oh, no. That would have been a stag do like no other.
It would have been quite cool, actually.
We are at the Northern Shooting Show in only a couple of months now, in the middle of May. And importantly, there are still a very, very small number of public tickets available to the Friday evening showing of our film festival. We are running the UK's very first hunting film festival in conjunction with the Northern Shooting Show, and all the information for that is on our website, thepacebrothers.com. You can, if you click films, you will find it's the first link there, and you'll be able to read about it. Not only are there tickets available, which are on the shop to come and enjoy the evening, which is we're going to be showcasing a whole bunch of great films. We're going to be showcasing the winners of the film festival. There's going to be some speeches on the future of hunting, just short speeches between the films. But if you are a budding filmmaker, we are still open for entries. We've got some great entries so far, but we are looking for more. So go and visit the website, read the kind of things we're looking for. It's definitely not too late.
Just make sure that when you're on the shop, not just for buying the tickets, that you read all of the instructions in the description for postage and so on, because we don't want you paying extra postage. Or if you're buying products, please don't click the sticker-only option when you're buying.
We've just changed it.
It's not
there won't be a sticker-only option anymore. We've fixed it.
Have you fixed
People
it?
don't have to think that hard anymore.
Oh, okay. It's fine. People can't read.
Since you mentioned the sticker, what I forgot to say about the prize for this week's podcast is that we're not only giving away the Smith Optics shooting glasses.
We're going to have a car sticker as well.
Car sticker 2.
I might add that if you're wondering, I want to get a car sticker, they're not £5 or something. I think they come in at £1.40 and then the little bit of postage on top. So I think in total it's £2 for the car sticker, which delivered. That's £2 delivered. So go and grab yourself 3. And the delivery doesn't go up every time you order one. So if you order 3, the delivery is the same.
And the very last thing before I mention our guest today, the very last thing for me, unless Daryl has something else,
I don't.
Is that there is still the Safari raffle on the website. That's probably going to run for most of the year. It is an incredible opportunity for you. If you may think that you will never have a chance to go and hunt in Africa, or then this is your opportunity. For £10 a ticket, there is a safari raffle running. The reason that this has come to us is that through a very good friend of ours who is a professional hunter in South Africa, he wanted to try and raise some money for the drought relief. They actually did get 1 day of rain the other day, but basically for the last 5 to 7 years there's barely been any rain in the Eastern Cape. You've actually seen some of the cities have basically run out of water now.
It has been in the news. Cape Town is in serious trouble.
Mm-hmm. So he wanted to raise money for that and the anti-poaching efforts. Most people know about the issue that they have with poaching in South Africa. So he got together with a couple of his friends and some farmers, and they basically donated their time and a few animals and the accommodation. The whole safari is worth about £3,000. It's £10 a ticket, and we need to raise the £3,000 in order to run the competition.
We're going well. There's been an incredible amount of entries.
Yeah, we're getting entries all the time. So please go and visit. Give it a punt. What's it got to lose? It's only £10, and you might just win the hunt of a lifetime.
And you're helping. So it is just £10, but you're also helping anyway, regardless. So we're gonna hit into the show.
You are going to be hearing from none other than Remi Warren, who is a hunter from the States. His profile has just blown up in the last couple of years. He opened his own outfit at the age of 22. He's the co-host of Solo Hunter, which is an online... there are online episodes of that TV series, but it was on one of the big cable networks in the States. He is friends and hunts with Steve Rinella, who I would guess probably all of you have heard of before.
I think there's a vast number of our listeners also listen to that.
The Meat Eater podcast.
Because also when you click on our podcasts, it says people that listen to this show also listen to this, and Meat Eater is like number one that comes up.
So he's been on the Meat Eater podcast, but he's also... I don't think this really came up when we were talking, but he's also on the Meat Eater show, although you're going to hear a little bit about that right at the start. He has an IMDb page, I just saw today.
So do we.
Yeah, but his is quite full.
I know, ours is pretty pathetic. So,
and he's been on Joe Rogan podcast, which is one of the biggest in the world, a number of times. Really great guy to speak to. We hadn't had much of a conversation with him before this podcast, so this was us getting to know him. Seems like a genuinely nice guy who just likes to hunt.
Exactly. I've just re-listened to the show because I edit the show, and I really enjoyed it for the second time round. Some awesome stories. We kick straight into a bear attack.
Yeah, that's a great way to start.
The first 30 minutes, and then we learn the backstory. So we're working a little bit backwards. We're going forward in time, then backward in time. But it really is a great show. And like Byron said, we're talking about Solo Hunter. We also talk about Tweed a little bit.
Mm-hmm. We're giving a bit of culture from this side over to the States.
And bow hunting, rifles, everything. We talk about everything.
My only regret in this podcast is that we didn't speak for longer, but we spoke long enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to have Remi back on, and he said he would definitely come back on another show, and we'll try and talk about all the things that we didn't get to in this show.
Well, we're not going to hold you up any longer. Enjoy the show.
Remi, thank you for taking the time out to join us on the Into the Wilderness podcast today. I'm going to start off by asking you about something which you are probably bored of speaking about, because I've actually heard you tell the story a few times on various shows and interviews and podcasts, but for the benefit of our listeners who might not have heard about it, I want to start by talking about the bear attack.
I mean, it doesn't happen too often in the UK. So.
No, although we have a lot of American listeners, but that are predominantly listeners from the UK. We don't have anything that really causes us concern here in terms of wildlife. It's very different in North America.
People are the only concern.
Yeah.
The bear attack was definitely a pretty, I guess, exciting experience. It's one of those things that when you do it enough, you think about it. And a lot of the places, for the people that don't know, like a lot of the places that I hunt are frequented by bears. So I'm around grizzly bears, brown bears quite often. I'd say probably half my hunts or more are probably near animals like that, whether it's brown bears, black bears, grizzly bears, mountain lions, like a lot of the places that I hunt have a lot of predators. But In this particular instance, I was in Afognak Island, which is off of Kodiak Island in Alaska. And that area is just known for some of the largest brown bears in the world. And you generally see a lot of them there. But on this particular trip and in this particular instance, we hadn't been seeing any. So I think that that kind of got our guard down a little bit.
How many people were you with, Remi? Were you with clients?
So I was over there with a friend of mine, Steve Rinella. He does that Meat Eaters TV show.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Here in America. And so we were filming an episode for that in a place that I've hunted elk before. Actually, I've been there quite a few times with my brother, and my dad drew the tag, and then I've done a few deer hunts over there outside of those elk hunts. So there's a species of elk on that island, Roosevelt elk, and it's one of those things you got to draw the tag. So it's kind of a unique opportunity to hunt elk there. They just get really large, and so Steve wanted to go with me, so we applied as a party and drew the tag. And since I'd been there quite a few times, I kind of figured, well, we'll just go to a place that I know. And so it was myself, Steve, and then what would it be? 4 other people. So I think
including the camera guys.
Yeah. So there was Giannis was there. He's like the producer, and then 2 camera guys and a guy just packing stuff for the camera guys. So yeah, so 6 of us. And we had, it's actually a fairly tough hunt, like pretty tough country, just real thick and fairly inhospitable as far as the weather goes, really wet all the time. There's not a lot blocking it. It's kind of just out on this point, so you get weather from every direction. So if it's horrible storms come from the north, it hits that area really hard. If they come from the south, it hits it really hard. It's like every direction. If a storm comes in, there's not much blocking the storm, so it gets a lot of rain, it gets a lot of wind, gets pretty bad weather.
Sounds like Scotland.
Yeah. It's like island weather's not really ideal most of the time. You don't have a lot of land mass protecting it from some of those big nasty storms that come off the Arctic there. They just kind of hit it full force, and that's what slows it down for the rest of the mainland a lot of the times. But Steve had shot an elk, and we took care of the elk, cut the elk up, put the elk in the tree, carried half of it out the night before, and then went back the next day to pack it out. And we came up to the tree doing pretty much everything we're supposed to, making noise, look around. There was no real sign of a bear. I mean, there was some sign, but it looked like it might have been something older that we didn't notice the night before, because we did everything in the dark the night before, or essentially 2 nights before. And because it took us a day to go back and then get back or whatever. And so we're there, and instead of loading up our packs, we just decided, let's sit down and have lunch. And that was probably what wasn't the best idea in hindsight.
I mean, how much? I'm sorry. I'm just trying to picture like where you're sitting down to have lunch. How much can you see? Like, how far can you see around you in terms of the terrain and the bush?
Yeah, I would say like behind us, maybe 3 meters.
Oh, okay. So it really is dense.
Yeah, it's really thick. Yep. And then, maybe in front of us, I could probably see at the furthest maybe 20 meters, but is like tall grass, pretty thick clumps of what we call alders, just like real thick, low vegetation, over your head high. And then kind of the kind of stuff that to walk through, you have to use your arms to push away and really push through. So very, very thick vegetation. And then just the grass itself was chest high, neck high type grass. So it's fairly thick. And then in some places, you might only be able to see through it an arm's length. It's not like that type of vegetation that you can see through. It's very thick and dense stuff. So your visibility is really low. And so we'd sat down, and a lot of the things that sound like went wrong are in hindsight because a bear attacked, but there were multiple instances throughout the course of a week or whatever where there were no bear attacks. And there's been many times that I've been there and you see the bears constantly, and sometimes they'll bluff charge or do other things, but you just can't always be thinking one's going to attack, even though you probably should, because there's 99.9% of the time you don't get attacked. It's just that small percentage of time that you do that you look back at it and go, oh, we could have done this different and this different. But
well, I guess with the amount that you guys spend out, in the outback, at some point, just the law of averages are going to catch up with you in terms of those kind of close encounters. If you never leave your armchair, then it's never going to happen to you.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. I mean, probably the chances of getting attacked by a bear for the average person are, it's way more dangerous to be driving your car to work.
Yeah.
That's because the average person doesn't spend a significant amount of time in big bear country. Mm-hmm. For the people that spend a lot of time in that, it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
Just to give people an idea of the size of these bears, how big are they?
Yeah, these are the largest bears in the world. They can be up to 1,000 pounds. I think the largest one from this island, I've actually seen it mounted. I don't know how tall it is, like nose to tail, but I know when it's standing on its hind legs, it would be at least 13 feet. So
it's colossal.
It's looking into a window of a 2-story house, essentially.
Wow.
It's a very big animal. So they could be up to 1,000 pounds, and they're very, very big. It's a size large, as big as they come. Polar bears are larger in general, but these are the largest of the brown bears, essentially.
So just before we get back to you sitting eating your sandwiches, for our listeners who are not that familiar with North America, just explain the difference between brown bear, grizzly, because there is a lot of confusion with regard to the difference.
Yeah, so there's brown. Here we have different bear species. We've got brown bears, we've got black bears, and then we've got grizzly bears. So essentially, a grizzly bear is a inland brown bear, is what it is. So a grizzly bear is a little bit smaller in size because they don't have access to coastal foods like the brown bears do. So you've got your brown bears on the coast, so anything on these islands, Fognac and some of the ABC islands around, and then along the coastal regions of Alaska, the peninsula in Alaska, those are what we classify as brown bears. So those are bears that have access to salmon. Because they have that access to salmon, they just grow larger.
Just the protein all the time. Well, during the runs,
protein, yeah. During the runs. And then they've also got access to other sea animals. I mean, I've seen brown bears feeding on dead whales, dead seals. So they just have a lot of food source. Generally, their temperament isn't as bad. I don't think their temperament's generally as bad as interior grizzly bears.
Do you think it's just because
they do have access?
Oh, okay. Food. Sorry. Yeah, you just answered my question.
Yeah. It's they just have a lot of food most of the time. However, because they have so much food, they get to such a large size. They're very domineering. They don't have any threats, and they really aren't in areas where they run into people so much. So humans are not something that scares them very often.
They're the daddy as far as they're concerned, and where they live.
Exactly. Where they live, they're at the top of the food chain, and they have the size and the strength and the speed to kill anything that's around, whether it be a human or whatever. I mean, even with a gun, it's very hard to fend these bears off because they are so large and fast and live in thick terrain. And when they want to be aggressive, it's a very dangerous situation. So these are, the biggest of the big bears as far as that's concerned. And, they still can be fairly aggressive. Like I say, the grizzly bears, I feel like, have just become more aggressive, at least in the places that I hunt, say Montana or in some interior Alaska, partially because they have less food source. And I think in the what we call the lower 48, like the United States outside of Alaska, the grizzly bears aren't hunted there, and they've just become more of, I guess, like less fear of humans. So they've become a lot more dangerous in recent years because their populations have increased. So then there's more run-in with them, with people, hikers, people just tramping and going on vacations and other things. So we actually see a lot more bear attacks than we used to because there's just more people in proximity to them now. And I think that they just don't have that as much of a fear as they probably once did. And just higher populations and more people, just more run-ins. But yeah, so we're under a tree eating sandwiches, thinking, okay, we'll eat these, pack up the meat, and then be off. And then we're sitting in what would be like kind of like a semicircle. There's actually three of us sitting on this little embankment just off the tree, like where a root grew and then the ground sloughed off. So it kind of makes it like a little natural bench. There's three of us sitting there. Steve would be laying across from the three of us. And then there's two guys back behind the three of us sitting. And we decided it was a fairly cold day, so we were going to make a little bit. We brought a jet boil with us, make up some coffee. So I went around. I took my pack off. I had my pistol and my bear spray on my pack belt, and I'd been transferring my pistols from the pack to my waist. And I took my pack off, and I thought, oh, I'll just sit here because I've been sitting on my pack with the pistol like right there, easy to access. But I went to go grab water for everyone to fill the pot for the coffee. While I was doing that, someone kind of sat where my pack was, so I just said, okay, well, now I'll sit on this little embankment. And now I'm kind of my body's facing downhill, so I can see sort of the valley, what little view we have there right now. So we're kind of up on a hill. And yes, one of the guys behind us were kind of sitting there, just doing as you do, not really, just kind of in the moment, thinking about our sandwiches more than anything. And one of the guys behind us hears something. And then I look up, and that bear is just running straight for us. And that's within, 20 meters or so. And that happened to be in that area that I could see probably the most. Just see this bear, eyes locked in, running straight into the group. And it was so fast. My initial reaction was to grab my pistol, which is only, 2 arms length away, maybe a little bit further. So I go forward to grab my pistol out of my pack. But at that point, the bear is already pretty much on top of us. I do what we call like a football juke move, go left and right, kind of simultaneously spin around, thinking, okay, and just thinking to myself, this is it. This bear's got me. It was very close. And then I jumped up onto the embankment where I was. My friend Giannis was to our right. And then Steve was laying right where the bear ran over. So I don't know how he got away or what happened, because his back was to it the whole time. So whether he rolled over or the bear just ran over top, I mean,
does he know what happened?
I don't even think he knows. I mean, he just remembers teeth and fur and breath, everything just right there. And so because it was 6 of us all together, we just essentially scattered. And then obviously, like, it just happened so fast. A lot of it we had to piece together afterwards, and I pulled out some photos and trying to figure out exactly what happened where everyone was sitting. just to kind of figure out, okay, how did this even happen? But the bear ran in, then I did the juke thing, and I turned around, went, up on the hill, and then turned around and see the bear like going the other direction. Then I look over on the other side of the tree and see the bear going away with someone. I just saw legs and a bear, and I thought, oh God, he's got someone. So I grabbed my pistol. I ran down. I think by this point, we trying to group back up because we kind of scattered, yelling like, who's missing? And Garrett, one of the other guys, pops up from the bushes. His eyes are just like super wide, and he goes, I was on the bear's back. He was back to back somehow. We'll figure that. We're all thinking like, what? Because like I definitely saw a bear and a person going down the hill.
Wow.
But I figured he was in his mouth. I never thought he was back to back with it. He doesn't even know how it happened. He doesn't know if he tripped and fell or like is the bear wheeled. I think it was almost one of those things where he was running away, the bear wheeled around at the same time. Somehow it wasn't very long. He said it was about like 2 Mississippi, 3 full seconds of going down the hill, which is a pretty good distance as fast as that bear's going. But yeah, so he popped up, and then at that point the bear ran off into the brush. We'd circled up and now had 2 pistols ready, but the wind was so strong that we really couldn't use the bear spray unless he came in, because he came in on the charge with the wind. So using the bear spray would have been fairly pointless. We would have just pretty much pepper sprayed or seasoned ourselves.
Seasoned it for the incoming bear.
Yeah, exactly. Little pepper steak for him. But yeah, so we'd circled up around the tree, and then it was fairly hair-raising after that fact, because the bear, you could hear him charge in again but not see him, and then it would stop, and then he'd charge in from another direction, and he never busted back out that second time. But had he busted out that second time, he was in that thicker side, so it would have been a meter by the time you could actually see him, and it was very close quarters on that side that he was charging in again. It would have been it was fairly scary, especially only having 2 guns. We tried to keep moving to get the pistols in position for that bear when he came in, and not knowing which direction he's coming in at. Then we continued to yell and make noise and try to scare him off, and then we grabbed the meat out of the tree and made haste to an area that was clear where we could actually see.
Wow. Your adrenaline must have been, or all of you guys' adrenaline must have just been through the roof.
Oh yeah, and it happened so fast. It was just a very fast deal. But that bear, because a lot of times bears will do a bluff charge or a warning charge, but there's a difference in that bear's demeanor and what he was going in. He was going in there to kill something. And I think what happened was he got real confused when we scattered and didn't know who to kill. He just wanted to kill everyone. And so he kind of was that look of confusion. Almost, if you imagine like a bear being chased by dogs, where he's not just going after one dog, he's going after all the dogs. And by going after all the dogs, can't catch one. So that pack thing where he's kind of going after everything, or a lion running into a herd of gazelle, and the gazelle scatter and the lion doesn't know which one to grab. There's something similar to that. And afterwards, one of the parts when we were talking, like immediately after, I was like, oh, Garrett's going, yeah, I was on the back of the bear. I go, yeah, he juked the bear, and then he turned around. Well, I didn't realize as I moved and then turned my back to him, Giannis was right behind me, and he had actually hit the bear in the face with his trekking poles.
Oh, right.
So, and that's what turned the bear. I had no clue. Your spatial awareness is very off in this moment. You have no clue where everyone's going, what's going on. I just knew where the bear was and where I was.
Self-preservation kicks in to an extent there.
Yeah, exactly. And everything happens so fast. And, all this, like the amount it takes to explain is 100 times longer than the amount of time it happens in. I mean, the amount of going for the gun, juking the bear, him hitting the bear happened all within a second and a half, as fast as you could move.
And the whole thing with the bear then coming back, you could hear it. What are you talking, like 2 minutes or?
Yep, 2 to 4 minutes, something like that.
Wow.
Not really sure at that point. Yeah, it could have been a little longer. Could have been shorter. I don't know, the concept of time in that situation. It felt like a long time. Probably wasn't. In the amount of time it coming back in, but we did give it ample amount of time to make sure that he wasn't. Give it a little bit of time to make sure he's not just going to charge in as soon as we start cutting the meat out of the tree or whatever.
And do you think he was coming in because he'd smelt the meat and thought, right, I'm gonna whatever's there, I'm gonna kill it so that I can have what I can smell?
I don't know. I don't know if that was because he came in with the wind, and it was a pretty good, like pretty strong wind. It would have been something that if you were stalking in on that bear, he would have never smelt you in that wind. So that was kind of the confusing part, is whether he heard us and just thought something was there, whether he'd heard something, snuck up and had seen us. Not really sure. Or whether he knew that meat was there and then heard something there and thought, oh, something's got my meat, I'm going to go in and kill it. Don't know.
So at that point, how much longer were you there before you actually left? Was it a day or two? I mean, everyone must have been seriously on edge until you were sort of almost back at home at that point.
Yeah, it was fairly funny because before that happened, everyone thought, oh, no, there's no bears here. Nothing's going to happen with bears. Then after that, everybody had the impression we were going to get attacked again immediately. Like we then saw another bear and thought, oh, but this bear is going to try to get us. And around every corner, we were just paranoid that a bear was out to get us.
That's understandable, I think.
Yeah, and so we were there because when we walked back, a pretty good storm had come in. I mean, like 100-mile-an-hour wind type storm, the type of wind that blows you over when you're standing up. And it had destroyed our camp. So then we got back to camp. It was just on dark. All of our gear was strewn out across
that's depressing.
Across the valley. We had our tents were ripped in half. Rain. It was cold. It was pretty gnarly, pretty bad. So we ended up busting down the 2 main teepee tents. One of them was salvageable. We re-pitched that on the downside of, like, the backside of this thick spruce tree. It's like a thick pine. Pitched it on the backside of the spruce. A couple of myself and Steve had just like one-man collapsible backpacking tents that were blown down but still intact and still usable. They weren't destroyed, so that was good. So we pitched those, and then a couple of the guys were able to get a fire going and then restring a bear fence, which is like a little electric fence you keep around your camp. It's more, I don't know if it's like a mental barrier.
I was going to say, I wonder if it would have stopped your bear.
I don't know. I doubt. No, in those kind of instances, I doubt it.
No.
But you never know. I did hear one night I was sleeping in I wasn't sleeping in there. I was waiting for some stuff to dry out. I was laying up against some gear in our base camp, and I did hear a bear walking behind me and tap the fence. So it did deter it in the dark. I don't know if they just don't like that shock or what, but I definitely did hear a bear, and it didn't go and destroy anything in camp or get any closer. So I'm assuming it worked, or it could have just been on a path and whatever. He wasn't going that way anyways. I don't know. But I do think that they do. I think that they work because as many times as I've used them, I've never had a camp destroyed while I've had the bear fence up. There's even been times that the bear fence isn't on, but just that, I don't know, maybe that little bit of wire, they
don't
like it. An unnatural barrier.
Yeah, exactly. They think, this wide open area, and there's this thing that keeps hitting me. Yeah. I'm just gonna walk away.
What kind of teepees do you use? Is it the thick canvas ones, or do you use more modern material that's a bit lighter?
Yeah, the lighter ones. I think they're. I can't remember which ones those ones were. It might have been a Seek Outside one or a Kafar. It's like parachute type material. and then they're single walled, but you've got little I don't know, like interior, kind of looks like a sheet thing that clips on the inside to keep the condensation. So
Okay, yeah.
you kind of make it a double wall thing.
Yeah.
Down low.
Is that's also got like the mosquito net in it as well? Does it?
No mosquito net.
Nothing.
No.
You just take it like a man and just endure the mosquitoes.
Yeah, exactly. There's no floor or anything on them. It's just a tarp. But that time of year, it's cold enough. Like there's no mosquitoes.
Oh, of course.
Then. Yeah, it's a little bit later in the season, so you don't really get hit that hard. Sometimes on the warmer days when the sun would come out, you get a few black flies, but not too bad to what it can be like in the summertime up there.
I've seen footage of your mosquitoes, and it looks quite horrendous. We have something here called a midgie, which is it's like a micro mosquito but on steroids. So you don't end up with the same sort of puncture wounds, but it's just horrendous, and there's a lot more of them.
Yeah, like you're talking clouds of hundreds of millions attack you at once.
Yeah, so that's what we call those, either black flies or no-see-ums. There's a couple different kinds, or white socks. Like there's 3 different kinds of those. Those actually are worse than the mosquitoes. Yeah. I think they don't leave as big of a bite, but they just get in everything and they itch a lot longer.
Yeah, it's just an itchy bite. That's
very
all it
similar
is.
to ours. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, so they kind of have it all up there. There's just so much water in the summertime, and you've got 24 hours of daylight, and it's just prime bug breeding area.
Mosquitoes are humping all day in the water.
Exactly. Yeah. They just breed and eat. That's it.
So you guys eventually got out of there.
Yes. Yeah. I can't. Honestly, I think it was a day later or the next day. I can't remember when it calmed down. It might have been a full day. It might have been the evening of the following day. I can't remember, to be honest. But yeah, we got out after that.
With a story to tell that will be with you for the rest of your lives, all of you.
Yeah, exactly. It was one of those, you go, man, it was crazy that nobody got injured.
Yeah, I was expecting a claw scrape or something.
Something, yeah, and we're pretty lucky that it wasn't, because the weather was so bad. It would have been really hard to get anybody out had they been maimed or mauled. It would have been a really bad situation where, even if it wasn't that bad of a mauling, would have been bad enough to do serious permanent damage, if not worse, because there was just no option of getting out of there.
Or getting out quickly. So I think it was, you were telling this story on Joe Rogan's podcast. I think that was where I heard this, and he was saying that he had always had this kind of macho idea that if a bear attack would kind of be cool, because maybe you would get like a scrape across his chest and it would be like the war wound of that bear attack that didn't quite happen. But after listening to your story, he was like, no, I don't want to even have a sniff of that experience.
Yeah, that's, at first I always thought, oh, it'd be cool. You think about it. You're around them all the time. You play these scenarios out in your head a million times. It's nothing like the scenarios you play out. It just doesn't happen like that. It's a lot faster. It's a lot more helpless. All the things you think you would do, it just goes out the window. When it actually comes down on you, there's really not much you can do, except you really just do whatever you can in those instances. And, I think not having any kind of deterrent, I would have felt a lot more comfortable if I had my pistol on me, because at least where I was sitting and the way that bear ran in, I would have been able to stop it, or at least try to deter it with a pistol. Now, everything worked out fine. So in hindsight, you wouldn't want to do anything different because it worked out. Who knows? I could have shot at the bear and that pissed it off even more and it killed someone. We don't know.
You all survived. No one
worked out how it worked. We all survived. But it wasn't the ideal way to survive, I'll tell you that much. I wouldn't suggest it, because I know for a fact I've been there alone many times. And if I had been alone in that particular instance, or any one of us had been alone, or maybe just one or two people, I think it would have been completely different outcome, and that would have been pretty terrible.
Things of nightmares. Now, if we rewind right back from...
We normally ask this at the beginning, actually.
But I wanted to get this out of the way because I know that our listeners will find it intriguing, and I wanted to hear the story firsthand as well. But let's go back to younger years and sort of your potted history to where you are today. I think you're 33. You're quite a young man, aren't you?
Yeah.
33, but you seem to have done a whole shed ton. From your guiding and TV and all that. So I want to understand how that's happened and how you've packed in so much so quickly.
Yeah, I think pretty much when I turned 18, I just had decided it's something that I wanted to do. I wanted to be a hunting guide. I wanted to be out. And I'd originally thought, I'm just going to take off some time, go hunting and figure it out and maybe write a book. I've never written a book, but I've done a lot of hunting in between. Probably should sit down one day and write some of the stories down. But I guess my thing was I just knew that I wanted to be hunting as much as I could. And I just packed up my truck and said, I'll just figure it out. So I loaded up my truck and headed to Montana, figuring that would be the good spot to get a guide job because the way the tags are there, it's easier. And I knew the area really well. I actually come from an area about 12-hour drive away from there. So loaded up and headed out. Just started kind of living in a tent and hunting as much as I could, living pretty cheap and learning areas. And then over that, by doing that, I ran into people, one of them being an outfitter. He was like, man, you're pretty good here. You know what you're doing. What, you want a job? Yep, that's exactly what I was looking for. So I took a job and then went back every fall. So I did my college and schooling in the spring and summer semesters and then took 6 months off to hunt, guide, and
awesome
in the hunting area. And yeah, just by being out there so much and you get to experience a lot of crazy things. I mean, when you're talking 6 months out, a year in the field, and then I kind of after college expanded that to go overseas and chase fall or hunting season wherever I could find it, whether it be South Africa or New Zealand or Australia or whatever, anywhere there was a season, I'd kind of gravitate toward and try to figure things out there, whether guiding or just hunting on my own, and fairly just trying to figure it out.
So you knew what you'd love doing and you just thought, hell, I'm going to make it happen, and you just started doing it. I love that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what my dad gave me the best piece of advice. He said, if you want something, just start doing it. You'll figure it out. Like if you want it bad enough, you figure it out. And his advice, because I was thinking like, I had like that. Everybody does that. Well, I'd really love to just hunt for a living, whether it be a guide or do whatever. I kind of had a plan of what I wanted to do. And I was like, yeah, but what's my backup plan going to be? My dad's like, if you have a backup plan, you're just going to go with the easy one. Everybody wants to do that, or there's a lot of people that want to do something and then they have a backup plan for when it doesn't go right. Well, if you have a backup plan, then you've already planned to fail.
So you give yourself no other
option. Yeah, if you give yourself no other option, then you're going to do it. And that's what I did. I just gave myself no other option. I said, this is what I'm going to do. And just went out and did it, I guess. You just start doing it. People you'll figure it out. You really will. It's like the chicken and the egg. Which came first? I don't know. You just got to start.
Yeah, you got to be doing it.
And go for it.
Yeah, you got to be doing it for opportunity to come knocking.
I was just going to say that particularly with our work as well and the line of work you're in, often when we speak to people, they go, "Oh, that's amazing! You're so lucky. You get to work and see all these places around the globe, and you get paid to do it." Well, it's not really luck because you've had to work really hard to do those things, and I think people only see the nice stuff, but haven't realized the years of work that's gone in before.
Yeah, exactly. It's all a lot of hard work, and I'm sure there's other ways. There's probably a million different ways. There's no job fair where someone's like, I'm going to give you a job in the hunting world, and I'm looking to hire right now. It's not that kind of thing.
No, that interview doesn't exist.
Put in the hard work. Yeah, just as much as you wish it could. There's no, and who knows, maybe there's some people that do it without working hard, but that's just not the way that I ever learned how to do things. It was just, you get things by working hard. When I guided, I would work. My goal was to be the best guide in the area that I could guide in. So I would work tirelessly. I'd be up before anyone else. I would scout on my days off. I would take hunters out. They say they shot an elk on Monday and they had 5 days to hunt. We shot it in the evening. I would pack that elk out alone through the night while the hunters slept, show back up at camp at 5 a.m. and hunt the whole next day, ready to go and maybe get another elk or whatever.
Hardcore.
Just 100% into it. And because of it, in an area that had fairly low success, my hunters were shooting an elk and a deer a piece. So there's 2 guys per week of 6 or 7 days. So I'd pack out 2 elk and 2 deer a week for 10.
We got as far as you're talking about how much packing out you were doing in a week.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, I just kept going, Jeez.
How much conversation did you have after, though, it disappeared offline?
We had a really good conversation. Nobody else was a part of it.
It's the joys of speaking to you from Scotland to the United States.
Yeah, that's the tough part. It's like, it's a lot easier to have a conversation when there's people in the room.
Yeah, it is. But despite that, this is actually a very, very clear line apart from it cutting off there. So if you wouldn't mind recapping, because we couldn't hear you, and our listeners certainly couldn't hear what you were telling us about the amount that you were packing out during the week. And actually, when you're telling us that, one of my questions was going to be for that is the kind of weights you were packing out and the number of trips it would take, and also the kind of kit that you're actually using it to pack out. It's not something done here a lot because we don't really have the need for it, although we do it a little bit, but our animals are a lot smaller than yours.
Yeah, so I was saying, I would put in the time to essentially give these guys the best hunt possible. And in the end, I ended up packing about 2 elk and 2 deer a week for about 10 weeks. That would be the Montana season. Then I'd hunt other seasons, other places. But it's one of those. So like for us, generally an elk, I'd say a deer is, depending on how, sometimes, I don't know how you guys field dress or if you take them out whole or what. Normally we do, we quarter them out. So we skin it. We don't gut it. We do like a gutless method. So we skin it up the back, take the skin off one side, peel the meat off front quarter, back strap, neck meat, all that. And then depending how far we are, how much time we have, we might take the bones out of the back, the quarters. Sometimes we won't. Most of the time, it's one of those things where you go, okay, I'm a mile from the truck. I'm 4K from the truck, whatever. I'll just leave the bones in. It's easier to handle and manage and hang and cool. So sometimes it's just easier to carry a little bit more weight, save a little bit of time, just get going, as opposed to deboning them. I would say, well, when I was younger, I would just try to carry as much as I could. Sometimes I'd do an elk in 2 trips, which would be about 160-pound pack.
Wow.
So what's that? I don't even know in kilos.
It's like
80 kilos, 70 kilos.
75 kilos, something like that. 70 kilos.
It's a serious weight. Let's put it that way.
That's some serious.
Yeah.
That kind of done your legs and knees.
That weighs as much as Barn.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So most of the time it'd be your body weight. Whatever you weigh, you put that in a pack and go. 100, but I would only do that every once in a while if it's like down. Most of my packs, I would say my average pack was right around 100 pounds or 50 something kilos, something like that. I keep it around that weight would be standard. So if you think about it, you should probably do for an elk multiple trips right at the 100-pound mark, 100 to 120. Anything over that is ridiculous, but I've done it just I tried. I shouldn't have. There's just times where I've carried that much. Now I'm only 33, but like yesterday I couldn't move because I had a rib come out off the old vertebrae and had to get it put back in place.
Oh,
and that's just from I from packing out when I think I was 19. It was a really steep snowy mountain. I had a whole deer in my pack, which is about 120 pounds, 115 pounds. Had the whole deer in my pack and slipped and went forward down the hill. And as I went forward, I tried to like catch myself, but with that heavy pack, I turned too fast, and that weight kind of threw me around. And then when I hit the ground, it popped 3 ribs off my vertebrae. And
that's
so
gonna hurt.
in that same, about every couple of years, I would say they slip off again, one or two of them. You just, and like all my joints crack and creak and hurt. I think
there's a moral here to this story.
Yeah, there is a more. When I would do it, when you're 19 and you're carrying a lot of weight and it doesn't hurt at all, and you're just used to it. People are like, "Oh, you're gonna feel that when you're 30," and you look at them like, "No, I'm invincible. You don't understand." And then you realize they probably knew what they were talking about, but that's all right. It's fine.
But now you've got Now you've got a little bit more age and wisdom to help you in the packing out, and so that you can your body can last longer.
Yeah, exactly. Like I try not to take as much weight anymore. Sometimes I just am stupid and have to, but I try to not have to. I've got some horses I use as well. That's nice, but a lot of times I would say, even if you have the horses, by the time you go and get the horses and saddle them up and load them up and drive, you would have just had the thing done. So you just carry it out. You can just make a couple trips, and you always take some of it anyways. You're walking out anyways. You might as well make a trip. So it just depends. But I would say, like, in average, we're talking probably 100-pound packs multiple times a week would be standard. Once or twice a season, you'd have that 170-pound pack, just for, I don't even know why, just to prove to yourself.
Prove you're still tough. I mean,
yeah. Like, no, I try not to. I don't think I'll do that anymore.
Do you do any training when you're not hunting, or are you just out that much that you don't really need to?
Yeah, I don't really. In here we like in the States, if it's like no seasons going on, I'm not hunting. I go hiking. Try to go hiking every day. And we look for like cast antlers or shed antlers, we call them.
That's a big thing in the States, the shed hunting.
A big thing. It's a weird thing too. It's not, there's people that's their life. I enjoy it, but I can just walk out from my house and go. And I just actually enjoy watching the deer in the off season. I'll just hike up, spend some time glassing them with the spotting scope while they still have their antlers on. And then there comes a point where they no longer have antlers, and you're like, well, what do I do? I might as well go look for their antlers. You've been watching some of these deer for the season. You go try to pick up their antlers, match them up. It's like an adult Easter egg hunt.
Yeah, it's become a sport in its own right.
Obviously not for yourself, but you're saying people do it full time. Is it worth quite a bit of money in the States? Obviously they've got a value here, but I don't think anyone that does it for a full-time job here.
No.
Yeah, I think there are people that have, I think a lot of people that might have other seasonal jobs do it kind of full time in the spring as just extra cash. Like, I have a good friend who, he does some guiding and he does some firefighting and he picks up a lot of sheds, so he's got 3 seasons of work where he's not actually having to answer to someone, can do what he wants. And then all his shed money just goes into a pool that he uses for hunting. So it's just his, it's like side income that he.
That's a nice way to pay for it. Yeah. So the animals are kind of paying for his ability to go and hunt. Exactly.
Yeah. It's come to a point though where it gets pretty competitive in certain areas, and now they're creating regulations where they're going to have a season on it because the animals are getting so pressured. I mean, when I first started looking for sheds, it was just for exercise and it's fun to go out and just something to do. Now people take it pretty seriously. So it is what it is.
You heard it first. If it happens in the States, it'll happen in the UK.
You never know. I was actually listening to someone talking about it the other day, and I can't remember who it was, and they were saying exactly that, which was that the human traffic in some of these areas now has become so much that it's really beginning to affect the movements of the wildlife and their ability to just do what they should be doing, which is eating and then breeding.
Yeah. It's especially in a key time of year in the winter, in the spring, that depends on, they're on the winter range, most of the places you find these casts. So you really need to give them their space. But when it becomes a thing for profit and it's how you make money, you're going to do what you can to pick up, they call it brown gold. Just, they go crazy for it.
What does it fetch? Like, what's the value of
it? Let's see. Like an elk antler might be, a lot of it is like on a grading system. So it just depends. White antlers are half the price of brown fresh ones. So fresh ones, I think, go for $11 a pound, something like that. Okay. So a typical elk antler might give you $100.
Because we're about 10 pounds a kilo, so it's there or thereabouts.
Yeah. So you might get $100 for a big elk antler, maybe $30 to $100. But if you go and pick up 10 of those in a day, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah. Huh.
Anywhere in there. And then sometimes, now if you find like a really large set that you could sell as a set, some people might sell a set of a mature animal for thousands of dollars.
But who's buying them? Is it for people just to put on their wall, or I don't really get that.
So the main market is for dog chews.
Okay, yeah.
So they'll in the States, like, people, their dogs, they treat very well. Like, they have birthday parties for them and crazy
dress
stuff
them up,
like that. Sweater vests and hats. Yeah, and the whole deal. But I would say like a hand length piece of antler, is like in a pet store, or for a dog chew might be $30.
I can believe it.
Yeah,
I've seen similar
that, yeah.
here, actually.
Yeah.
I can believe that.
It's crazy. It's literally crazy. So the markup on it's ridiculous, and then the price keeps going up, and it's very popular. It's like, it's one of those. So it goes for that, and then some of them go for like chandelier antler making.
Yeah, that is beautiful.
Stuff like that. Yeah, so a lot of that goes to that stuff, and even like carved antlers. Some of it, like moose paddles, will go for carved antlers and things like that. And then, like matched sets go to taxidermists that mount them and sell them as a finished product most of the time.
How did this is completely kind of changing the subject from sheds, but it's going back to you guiding. How did you go from guiding a lot of clients and hunting to the filming side of it? And when you explain this, one thing I've always been slightly confused about, although we don't have it here, but I've watched some episodes, is the solo hunter series, because it's not just you. There's a couple of people involved in it, isn't there?
There's myself and then Tim Burnett.
It's
and
just
one
the two
other
of
guy.
you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, correct. Yeah. And generally, like, the episodes are us going out on our own, not with each other.
Yeah.
So each episode would be the other person. There are like a few episodes where it wasn't even actually filmed for solo hunters. It might be like one. I think there's one episode where my dad's with me or something,
Okay.
but I was just filming that for fun. And then we just turned it into an episode.
So how'd that all come about?
Yeah, I think a lot of that was in my discussion I had with myself after the phone cut out.
Was it?
No, I just back to the fun, what you want to do and doing it. I always was into filming ever since I was a kid. I would carry a video camera around and film our hunts. I remember we had these videos that would come out. a magazine called Eastman's Hunting, and they would produce these DVDs. I mean, I was so excited to get these DVDs in the mail and watch these DVDs. And I just remember, okay, that was something that I was really into. Even as a young kid, I would film everything I could. I was always into cameras and filming and hunting simultaneously. So it's just something that I always did, was filming. My dream would have been to do some kind of hunting television or filming of some kind. And so I just thought, well, I'm just going to start filming everything I do. And I've always just been that type that thinks, you know, I want to get a resume under my belt as when I was younger. So I ran into a guy that had a magazine. I started working for this magazine for about 40 hours a week for no pay, just to build up a lot of time. That's a lot of time. So in my off season, I would go to school and I would do this magazine. I'd put it together. I'd do all the graphic design. I'd do all the editing. I'd write stories. I mean, I was essentially in charge of a magazine. I was 22 years old and was given the helm of a magazine because I was willing to put in more work than guys that were getting paid full time. Like, just take over. Yeah. But who's going to give a 22-year-old that opportunity? So for me, a lot of things in my life have been about, I was never the type of person that did anything it was more for experience. So if I did something, it was, what's the experience I get out of it? I didn't do any of this for notoriety or money or anything like that. I just wanted to do what I love. Now, whether that meant going out on my own and doing it or whatever, I just love to go out and be hunting and do what I like. So the payment for me and a lot of things that I did early on was the experience and the resume that I got to build up, experience that nobody else had, especially at my age. So that's why when people say, oh, you're really young and you've done so much, it's because I was willing to get my hands dirty and do a lot of things for nothing. Just build that resume up. I wanted to be 25 years old and have had experiences that no one my age had because they weren't willing to sacrifice what it might have taken to get there.
And there is a sacrifice to that.
Oh, there is. I mean, I had to give up a lot of things and a lot of comforts, a lot of, when friends are going out and doing things, I wasn't. I was working or doing whatever, or, you know, it's just one of those things where you have to make sacrifices and work hard and, you know, you have to have some kind of intrinsic motivation. Otherwise you aren't going to do it, because a lot of people are motivated by the paychecks that they get or the accolades that they get or whatever.
It's not enough when you're doing this kind of thing, is it?
No, you have to be motivated by yourself, and just, it's something that you love to do, and you have to just do it because you want to. And I proved that in the magazine by just writing and everything kind of taking over. And for that magazine, I started thinking, well, I'm going to start doing videos. And so I started filming everything. And then unfortunately, like in the US, we had a little bit of an economic downturn and a lot of magazines went under then.
Yeah. Same here.
And that was one of the magazines. Yeah. That was one of the magazines that happened to go out of business, but it was no sweat off my back, because I mean, I was just in it to gain that experience, really, and to be able to, in the future, say, look what I've done already.
Yeah.
Build up a resume of, like, I can do this. And so while I was doing that, I was filming constantly. And then I saw something for Solo Hunter. It was, Tim had happened to have like a TV time slot and needed content. And I just called him up, and it was just a coincidence that he ended up living, like, the U.S. is a pretty big place, and he happens to live within 5 miles of me. So
no way.
It was like,
a match made in heaven.
Random. Yeah, exactly. And he was looking for content. And I was like, hey, I've got 100 filmed hunts. He's like, really? Wow. I was like, yeah. And some like unbelievable stuff that had you got to realize too, at the time, I mean, it had no purpose. It was just me doing what I wanted to do. Like, if I wanted, I was filming a hunting TV show without having a hunting TV show. Yeah. It's like, it's like, if I wanted something, I just did it. And by doing it and not having a reason to do it other than that's where I wanted to be in the future, it opened that door for me. It was like, okay, I already put in the work for it. I had already filmed. Now it didn't fit the solo hunter show, but we needed content and we had this idea, but we just had to work up to it. Or he had this idea. And so for the first couple seasons, it was just a lot of stuff that I'd filmed for my TV show that didn't exist, or just, and had no plans of being a TV show other than I knew that's what I wanted to do. So I just started doing it. And then we kind of grew from there, and it became the Solo Hunter TV show, and done. People have enjoyed it.
Yeah, there's a big
and
following.
So the concept of it is we go out and we film ourselves hunting, and it's very challenging and it sucks a lot of the time. We do a lot of spot and stalk hard hunts with a bow and then try to self-film it. I mean, I think there's no harder challenge in hunting, especially if you're looking for a mature animal, and a lot of the places we go are pretty remote. But I think people like it because, and it's the type of show that I would watch if I was to watch a show. So I kind of wanted to make
it feels kind of achievable as your average person, I suppose.
Right. I think it's achievable, and I think that there's that sense of like these guys are actually out there. They have to have some sort of skill to do this, because as a guide, I'd guided many hunting, quote unquote hunting TV shows, and they were just bullshit. It just
really,
because here I worked my ass off to hunt hard and be good at it. And then the guys that I'd watched on TV like had no clue what they were doing. So it just was, to me, it was like, okay, I never want to be that person. And with different strokes for different blokes, but
I can imagine that actually. So you were basically providing the skill off camera, not even related to the show, but they'd hired you to do the hunting. I can imagine how some of these things are spun. I mean, I guess some of it's just driven by ego.
A lot of it was, yeah. And I'd guided a guy on a trip, and then it was this thing where he would ask me a question, and they'd be filming, and I would say like exactly what the elk are going to do, and like, I mean, this was from years of experience of knowing what these elk do and like hunting hard and putting in time, and I would give him that knowledge, and then he would do something to mess it up, and then they would restart filming with him telling me what I just told him. I'm like, and that's how those shows go. And It's like you're making the expert look like you're teaching him. Like it just irritated me. Like, if this is what that is, I want zero part of that. I don't ever want to be a part of anything like that.
There's always the grim side to or the reality to every industry, especially when it comes to filming, which we spend most of our time doing, or spend most of our time filming or being part of hunts. So yeah, we know exactly kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so I think that was part of the thing of solo hunting was what I enjoyed is I can go out there and I can take the camera and I can do something that's extremely hard to do. Kill a mule deer, spot and stalk with a bow, but I'm going to even add the element of filming myself to it. Like it's very difficult. So for me, that's my way of saying I can actually do this. That's all it is. And that's why I enjoy it, because it's taking on that added challenge. And there's a lot of people that can do that. And I think that those people are the type of people that I relate to. And those people are the type of people that relate to the show, because they go, yeah, it is about getting out there and being able to do it yourself. And there's nothing, I mean, I'm a hunting guide. I go on trips with friends that are guides, and there's that world, and I love that world. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But for the show that I wanted to portray, I enjoy the fact of going out and showing people I can do this. And it's kind of part of like how I view the world is you can do it too if you try hard enough.
The thing about the filming is you kind of have to hunt twice. You got to hunt and then hunt for the camera.
Exactly. Well, the thing like when I do other shows that might be filmed or whatever episodes, we've done some stuff for Under Armour and the Meat Eaters, and we've done quite a few different television shows in the U.S. and Canada and other places, or not in Canada, but shows that are aired in Canada. But one of the things that you have to realize is life is not a easy packed up story in 22 minutes. It makes no sense. Because you're talking about taking large spans of time into something that makes sense in a short amount of time. So when you're filming, like, things have to make sense and have an order and a beginning, a middle, and an end, and tell a story. Otherwise, it's not watchable. It's random. It doesn't make any sense. So yeah, you have to film things essentially twice, because you have to film a story of what's going on and condense what's going on into a short amount of time, and that's actually fairly difficult to do.
Yeah.
We
Tell
agree.
us about it.
Yeah, we agree.
But that's the thing, is a lot of people who maybe they watch the stuff and they hunt themselves, but they've never had any part in filming for hunting or any kind of filming, don't realize how much work goes on in the background, not just out in the field, but then back editing as well. There's a colossal amount of work to actually create a relatively few minutes.
I think I was going to say earlier on. Well, I will say it so it doesn't go out of my head. The thing with Solo Hunter, I think a good testament to it is, if people like it in the UK, which they do, then it's a good show coming from the US, because there is a number of shows from the US that is just not palatable to.
Doesn't relate, does it?
Doesn't relate, and they in the UK they just don't like it.
That's good to hear. That's what I like to hear, because it's nice that you can relate to. That's the thing that I think is really neat about hunters and hunting culture, especially the more that I travel in places that I go. I could go to New Zealand or South Africa or probably the UK or wherever. And if you're a true hunter and you love hunting, we can relate on that level of we have that bond of, we're hunters, we see things in the same light or in the same vein, and we come from completely different cultures. And that to me is pretty cool, to be able to go anywhere and have that connection with someone that also enjoys the same thing. It's a cool thing. So when somebody enjoys, say, Solo Hunter, then it's like, I understand that wherever they are, they have that same connection. They can do that same thing, and that's very cool to me. It's interesting.
It's a very sort of primal thing, that connection of hunters, because I have other interests and I meet people who share those same interests, but I never share the same bond that I have between other hunters who I may have only met sort of in passing, or I might have had the chance to hunt with them a bit, and you're always left with that friendship and bond that is greater than any other shared interest that I have with other people. It's strange, and I can only think that it kind of goes back to the beginning of humans being human.
Definitely. Yeah, so it's a tribe of hunters that have a special bond. And you're right, with other interests, there's a lot of things that I like skiing. You can bond over skiing, but not in the same way that you can bond over hunting. It's completely different, and that's a good way to put it.
So what does the rest of the year look like for you, Remi? You've just finished hunting, right? Your season's kind of just come to an end, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, our last bird season ended a couple weeks ago, and for the most part, there's really, most of the seasons are over here. I generally head over to New Zealand and do some hunting over there in New Zealand or Australia in the March, April, May.
Nice.
Time frame. This year I'm actually getting married, so I'm going to be getting married in April. That's kind of what I'm focusing on, and then I'll be doing some hunting after that in Hawaii and probably New Zealand, maybe Australia, and some hunting in Montana as well. We have spring season.
You need to cut your journey slightly shorter and come to Scotland instead. Then again, is it shorter from Montana or something like that? I'm not sure.
Well, you could fly the other way around.
You just fly the other way around. You should come and hunt in Scotland in your off-season, because you can hunt nearly all year round here.
Oh, you can?
Almost, yeah. There's only something you can hunt.
Yeah, I would love to. That's one of the things that's on my list, is to hunt in Europe, because I never have. And there is it looks like a lot of great hunting over there that I think is fairly hidden to the rest of the world, or at least has been. And it's cool to see it become more known about and more or at least for us in America, it seems like it didn't exist. And then all of a sudden you start seeing more and more about it and the hunting culture that's there. And you go, that's really cool. I would love to try that out and hunt there and experience that. It's really cool.
I think the thing is you've got so much on your doorstep and so many different species, and your country is so big that why look outside?
Yeah, but
but
you don't see a man in tweeds walking across the hill, though.
No, you don't.
No, never. Never.
You will here.
Yeah. Well, you guys can come over here. We could start the tweed revolution.
Hey, now there's an idea.
I'm not sure how practical it is.
Well, I don't know. The interesting thing that you might not know is that a lot of the tweeds here, so a lot of the estates, which is the privately owned land, which is we don't have the sort of the vast public land that you have in the States, but the hunting is still pretty accessible. You just pay. It's not ridiculously expensive. But a lot of those woven tweeds were designed, if you go far enough back, to relate to the type of terrain of that estate. So you'll find quite a grey-coloured tweed in a part of the country where there's a lot of granite poking up through the ground. You'll find quite a sort of yellowy colour on the west coast where there's a lot of a particular type of grass. So they knew what they were doing, those old guys.
It is camouflage tweed. That's basically what they designed.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's really cool. So is it one of the things that I've noticed, at least as far as European hunting, some of the stuff that I've looked into is bow hunting is very either looked down upon or not legal, or what's the go on that?
So there are some, you can't hunt here in the UK with a bow. There are some countries in Europe, like mainland Europe, where you can hunt with a bow, but it's quite often restricted. So in Denmark, they can hunt roe deer, but I think that's it. They can't hunt anything bigger with it. And yeah, you're probably right to some extent, looked down on. I'm not sure if it probably has something to do with our history and killing a lot of people with bows and arrows and crossbows. It might have something to do with that. Exactly. But I recently wrote an article for one of the hunting magazines I write for here, and I write the back page in there, and I normally feature either long gone hunters, or what I started to do when I took it over is I started to feature hunters who are alive today who are making an impact positively in hunting around the world. And I featured Cameron Hanes on the back because of his sort of reach to people who aren't hunters, and who of course is a bow hunter. As far as I know, I think he only bow hunts. And but although it was a rifle magazine, I didn't feel like that mattered, like the tool that he was using. It was more he was a hunter and this is what he was doing. And I actually got criticized for that because of the attitude towards it here, not by everybody, but by some people. So yeah, you are right, and I think that's something that I hope will change with time. I'd like to see regulated bow hunting back in the UK, but we're just struggling to keep hunting at the moment. Never mind bringing back bow hunting. So.
Yeah, no, I was just curious about that. Just get a different take on it. I mean, I enjoy both rifle hunting and bow hunting. We just do whatever we can. You just try to extend your season. So if you're really into hunting, you pick up a bow because then you can hunt more. You can get more opportunity, more tags, more time, different times of the year, because everything's so separate. So you got your bow season, then you got some places have muzzleloader seasons, and some places have. And then you've got your rifle season, then you've got your bird season with your shotguns, and you just try to do everything you can.
There's no bow hunting test at all, is there, in the States?
There is, yeah.
There is.
It's not necessarily a test, but it's like a we call it hunter's safety, bow hunter's education.
Is that a yearly thing, or is it a once-off kind of thing?
One time, one and done.
See, in Denmark and the places that can bow hunt in Europe, they have a very strict test that you have to perform every single year. And from my understanding from the people that have done it, it is actually quite hard.
Especially because they have it for the different types of bows as well. So if you might have your ticket for a compound, but it doesn't mean you can go and hunt with the recurve.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah, a totally different skill level, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's quite a bit different. The almost sometimes if you've hunted with traditional gear, what we call like a recurve or a longbow, and then you go into hunting with a compound bow, it almost seems like the difference between a bow and a rifle. Yeah. Really. I mean, we call it bow hunting, but with the technology that's available now, I'm not so sure what it is. It's its own species of. It's its own thing now.
I saw. I was looking at some pictures from the ATA show in the States, and the gadgets that you can now put on a compound bow is unbelievable. I mean, it is limitless now. As in, you can have the same amount of gadgets on a compound, if not more, than you can put on any rifle.
Oh yeah, way more gadgets and technology. And it doesn't seem as regulated as much. I think that's some of it is, but depending on where you live, there's all kinds of crazy things. My thought on some of that is it goes a little far sometimes, where especially when somebody's like, I'm a bow hunter and I don't like this kind of hunting and that kind of hunting, and they get this attitude where they're a high and mighty bow hunter, and I just have to laugh at some of that. Yeah, because you're a bow hunter, but you use the most advanced technology you can find, where you're trying to turn it as far away from bow hunting as possible. I mean, it's still tough. It's still bow hunting, but you're using aerospace technologies. I mean, just shoot a gun. Who cares?
Well, the thing is, if you look at a compound bow these days, there's not a lot of difference between the skill level needed with just shooting a rifle with open sights. Open
sights, yeah.
Because you're limited by the same need to. Okay, I understand that the bullet will go further, but you need to be able to hit what you're shooting at and do it efficiently. So an ethical hunter with open sights is going to be in kind of the compound range.
Yeah, definitely. There's some difference as far as drawing and being, and the speed. Whereas if you shoot at a deer at 50 meters with a rifle, he can't duck the bullet, but he can duck the arrow.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
But it's a little bit different as far as that goes. But yeah, you're correct. A lot of the skills and everything are very, very similar. But for me, I think it's strange when groups of hunters become against groups of hunters.
It's not helpful, especially in the kind of global position that we're in as hunters. Generally, it's not helpful at all.
Yeah, it's extremely bad, I think, for hunting as a general. Because if you take in all the hunters of different kinds, I mean, I don't hunt with a crossbow. It's one of those things here that's kind of, if you bow hunt, you kind of are ingrained to look down on crossbow hunting. But for me personally, if you hunt with a crossbow, that's how you hunt. That's great. You're a hunter. I don't care about what you hunt with or how you hunt, as long as you do it in an ethical manner, show respect to the animals and to the environment, then I'm okay with it. But now, if you're any kind of hunter and you don't show respect, then I think those are the type of hunters that you can weed out of the population, and hunters should be against those that bring a bad name to the sport and our endeavor and what we love, because it's only going to hurt it in the long run.
Yeah, definitely. I think I heard, I think it was Steve Rinella was saying that he used the analogy that if you are on a boat, if you're a group of hunters on a boat and one of the guys starts shooting holes in the bottom of the boat, you're going to kick him out. And I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, that is a good way to put it.
I was going to ask you, kind of touching on your years of kind of working hard, and there's many other people in our country and the US that have done years and years of work and have found themselves in the position of making films, and they get sponsorship with people, a bit like ourselves. We do get offered various things all the time. And the rise of, I guess, the ambassador, and the rise of many hunters, I don't know, what would be the word, kit grabbing, not kit grabbing, but...
doing it for the sake, I suppose what you're saying, is you're saying the people who are doing it just for the sake of, they want to have the stamp of a brand.
They want a stamp of a brand, but they also just want the kit. We've noticed a rise of it.
Kit whores.
Kit whores, that's it, kit whores. That's the word I was looking for. We've noticed a rise of it here in this country, and... Have you seen it in the US?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's definitely a thing that happens here. I think that's because social media becomes such a good advertising tool, and the problem I have with it is I think that it can be a great tool, but I think that when you're delegating someone as an ambassador of something that may not have the experience or the code of ethics or whatever, then you're going to run into some very interesting problems down the road, especially as a company that has a big spotlight on them. So when that's the trouble, is there might be people that have, go out there and are representing not only a company, but for that company, what that company does hunting, yet they may not have the experience in the background. And when something happens, they may not know how to handle themselves or do it in the right light that protects hunting, because they aren't as invested as some other people. So there's people that have put in time and are invested, and not saying like what your age is or whatever. You can gain the skill, and there are people that go out and work hard and do it, and that's great. But I think that at some point it gets diluted a little bit, and you end up with a bunch of weird things that end up happening, and it looks bad for hunting as a whole, I think, if that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you've got some companies that back you, but I think you do it in a way that it's not. You need support to be able to do the good work that's being done, to be able to tell the stories and portray hunting in the light that needs to be told. So you need support from companies and organizations, but you do it in a way that it's not in people's faces. I see. I mean, your Instagram, for example, I don't know at what point it started to escalate, but you've got shed loads of people on there now. But it's clear that you're supported, but it's not shoved down people's throats. And I think there are a lot of people who are trying to get into it that don't understand that if you're flying a flag continually, it means nothing.
Yeah, I agree. I think that part of it too is you need that support. Otherwise, you really couldn't do what you do. But also, the companies that support me are companies that I would support either way.
Got you. Yeah.
I don't just go out and look at, oh, this person wants to give a helping hand. Well, it's something that I would never use. It's some kind of frivolous product that is just a product, and they just want someone to promote it in a way that doesn't make any sense to me. It's something that I would never do, because I guess it's me just not caring enough to want to be that person that just whores out products to people that I don't believe in,
I think that people see through it, though. I think that your average person on the street, they see through that, and they want people who genuinely, they use the stuff because it's great kit, and like you said, it's kit you'd probably use anyway, which is great. And then you get to support the company gets to support you, and people believe in you, rather than people that, of course he's using whatever it is, he's paid to.
Exactly. Yeah. And for me, like, any company that I've worked with is more along the lines of, like, we help each other. It's stuff that I've been using for years. I think one of the like, a company that I work with, just as an example, the company that I work with that I think is one of the types of brands that get thrown down people's throats and that makes sense, is like supplements.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you see like a lot of supplements. Well, a company that I work with is Wilderness Athlete. And this is just my personal experiences. The reason that I work with a company that does supplement type stuff is because when I'm guiding, and for a long time, years before I ever did any writing, years before I ever did any TV stuff, before they made performance type drinks, Gatorade was the only thing, and you couldn't take Gatorade into the backcountry. This was the only company in the US that made like powdered stuff that you could take into the backcountry, and I started using it. It's like I've used it for 10 years. I can't even remember how long. Who knows how long? And it's like helped. So then to use it when you have a legitimate reason that you use something, it makes more sense. But there's a lot of people that promote that kind of stuff in a weird way that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, we see it all the time.
You just go like, okay, so how does that protein powder make you kill more deer?
Well, I sprinkle it on the wind.
Yeah. But I mean, now if it's like I take it protein type powder as backcountry food, because you can't carry enough, like, I don't know if you guys, I'm assuming you guys can probably do some like backcountry type hunts.
A little bit. We do more of it than most people, because without going sort of deep into it, that kind of accessibility is not really there. But it's the kind of hunting we do, so it's the kind of stuff that we have tried to encourage people to do, and we actually take
clients out doing
for
that.
that kind of experience. But here in the UK, and still we started doing it. We've been doing it 2 years now, and there's still no one else doing that kind of hunting here.
But we were doing it before 2 years ago, and the only reason why we did it is because so many people asked us, "Can we come with you?" So yeah, there was kind of so many people asking, so we decided, well, we'll give it a go.
We don't want to keep it to ourselves. Let's try and share this.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, because I do a lot of the hunts that I do are that type of hunt, like backcountry. So you pack up your backpack, you carry in your food, and on those kind of hunts, you're carrying a heavy pack. I'm carrying camera gear. I'm burning thousands of calories, and you can only carry so many to refuel. You can only eat so many calories to start off, but you can only refuel so many ways. So for us out here, that's huge, is fueling. Like, we use a lot of dehydrated meals and this, that, and the other thing. And when you've eaten as many dehydrated meals as I have, you don't want to eat any more dehydrated meals.
Yep.
Anything you can do to spice it up and change it is because you just stop eating. You just stop, and you're burning calories, and then you end up losing a lot of weight and losing a lot of strength and feeling pretty bad by the end of. Then everything starts to go, especially when you're in wilderness situations and rough places. It's a weird cycle of your body starts to get wore down, then you mentally start to give up, and then you want to go home, and then it's miserable and it's wet, it's cold, and there's no way, and you're miles away from the roads, and it just becomes miserable. So you just try to do everything you can to make it not miserable, I guess.
It's funny how if you've had a few months in the off season where you're not eating whatever dehydrated meals it is, when you eat one again for the first time, it's like, man, this is good. This is good.
Yep.
But then as you get through the season, I just can't do it. There might be 6 choices, but by the end of it, they all taste the same.
But it's also, by the end of it, you've eaten all your favorite ones, so you end up with just beef and potato for a week solid.
Yeah. That's never, no matter how much you like one, don't overeat it. That's because there was, I had some favorites, and I'd eat them for 5 days in a row. Now I can't even smell them without getting sick.
Oh man,
just thinking about it. So but there's, I think back to your point, there is a lot of that where it's people throwing products down people's throats, and I'm not really into that. I don't like that. But there is the balance of, there are companies out there that make products, and when you really think about it, what hunters talk about when it's me and my buddies sitting down talking, we're talking about gear most of the time. It's like, what in our kit do we like? What don't we like? What rain gear do we like? What pack do we like? What don't we like? So for me to be able to share what I like with a lot of people, I don't think is a bad thing, because those are the questions that I get asked if I wasn't sharing it.
Just out of interest, what pack do you use? This is a genuine interest, because we are looking for new packs.
So one of my favorite packs is called the Outdoorsman pack. But I like frame type packs.
Yeah.
So for frame type pack, I think that's the best one, because it sits up. It doesn't it's not too big and bulky and loud. It's still fairly compact, but you can fit a lot into it. You can put a lot of weight into it, and it's extremely durable. I've used one for a long time and just literally roped them down cliffs and just never had any problems with them. Bulletproof.
Made in the States, I assume.
What was that?
Is it made in the States somewhere?
Yeah, it's made in the States. It's a small company. I would say they pretty much just as close to hand making a pack as you could get, really. They injection mold all the frames, and then they just have them assembled, and so I think they might even be hand sewn bags. I'm not sure, but they're pretty top quality. It's I don't even know how you find them. Called the Outdoorsman.
I'll give it a Google.
Pack. Yeah, give it a look. They're real good. If you want an internal frame pack, I've been using that Stone Glacier. Those have been pretty good as well.
I've heard of those, yeah.
Yeah, so those are really good for internal frames. For external frames, I like that Outdoorsman pack. It's just, it holds the weight up off your, where it's supposed to, around your hips, and it's got a small shelf. It's fairly light, but durable light. It's not ultra light. You can go through some brush and it's not going to tear up. or load it on a horse if you're going through brush. It doesn't tear up like other packs might.
Well,
I'd say between.
Sorry, Remi.
Okay.
I was just going to say, for our listeners, I don't think it gets much better recommendation than at this point. Everyone's heard the amount of hunting that you've done,
Yeah.
and if this is what you've ended up with after all of that hunting, then I think that's a pretty good recommendation for packs.
Yeah, I mean, because there's you kind of got to find the balance on packs too. Because some packs, if you're just hauling meat and look, I'm going on a moose hunt and I'm just a meat packing guy. There's a pack called Barney's of Alaska. Those are great for just hauling meat, but they aren't the sneakiest, quietest. It's just a traditional freighter pack. So that's kind of why I landed on that outdoorsman one, because I love the ability of like a freighter pack, but I wanted something a little more versatile. And then those Stone Glacier packs. The reason I like a frame pack is because when I've got my rifle, I can throw the sling over the frame.
Yeah.
And it holds it, and you don't have to. It's just easy. And there's sometimes a little bit more room and weight bearing ability. But the Stone Glacier ones are super light, and then the bag comes off of it's an internal frame, but the bag hooks to the outside of it. It's kind of a hybrid, I guess. It's still an internal frame, but the bag pops off, and you can put meat between the bag and the frame portion.
So you can pack out with your stuff still in your bag, but
with your stuff still in your bag. Yep.
That's
but
clever.
You aren't going to put more than a quarter in there, but they've got these cool, almost like parachute material bags that you can put boned out meat in, and it actually sits pretty good. So like that elk hunt in Alaska, we were all using Stone Glacier packs, and I've taken a liking to it. I've just used the outdoorsman one for so long and just so used to it. It's hard for me to. I've literally tried every pack, and I keep going back to that one. So, but I would say the top two, the two that I use would be the Stone Glacier and that outdoorsman.
We could carry on. I wasn't going to quite finish up. I was just going to say that we could carry on talking on. There's a whole heap of things I haven't even had a chance to ask you about yet, but we are going to start wrapping up now. So we'll start off with what we'll just have to have you on again, Remi.
I was going to say that obviously we need to let you crack on with your day, and we need to finish our day at some point. But I just wanted to ask you about your free diving and spearfishing, because it's something I do a lot of, and I've done a lot in Australia, and I see pictures of you doing it. So have you been doing that since you were young as well?
No, I started doing that maybe when I was 20 or so, a little bit later in life. Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I did it really wrong for a long time and kind of got some instruction on how to do it right. I was never really good at it. It was just something that I go to the ocean, do a lot, really enjoyed. We'd fish for, I'd go for abalone, which or in New Zealand they're pawa.
Yeah.
Since I was a little kid.
Very nice.
Yeah, they're really good. Like a big snail, essentially.
Yeah.
So I've done that since I was a little kid, and then kind of started to do the spearfishing stuff. I spent quite a bit of time in the Dominican Republic when I was in college age, and so I picked up spearfishing more there. My grandmother lives in Hawaii, so I would go over there and visit as well. And
all
do
very nice countries, I might add, for their oceans, unlike the North Sea.
But where I grew up as a kid, where we do the abaloning, was that cold California coast type stuff. So you do the abalone stuff in the cold, nasty ocean. But most of the spearfishing I like to do is in warmer water, nice, clear, warm water. Don't have to wear a wetsuit or anything. Makes it nice. But yeah, it's something that I really enjoy to do. I'll be going back and doing a little bit more here next in April. Probably do some more spearfishing, and it's just a fun. It's hunting underwater. I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to just ask you about was, at what point were you conscious about the rise of your public profile? Because I mean, you mention your name with a lot of hunters now, and most people will be aware of your shows or aware of who you are. And as I said earlier, you've got a very large social media following. I mean, all of that comes with, to some extent, a certain responsibility because what you put up, and we kind of touched on it earlier.
It's a bit like Spider-Man.
Yes. But at what point were you aware that, man, a lot of people are watching what I'm doing now?
I still don't think I'm that aware of it. It's a very strange thing for me. Because I don't know. I am the type of person. I'm an extroverted introvert, if that makes sense. Like I do these things, but I'm a very type of person that likes to stay off to myself. So it's a strange thing for me to actually even do any of this. But it's what I love to do. So it doesn't make any sense. What I do is, I guess, I don't know. So for me, it's fairly weird because I'll go to, like I say, a sports show and a lot of people will recognize me. I'm like, where do they even know me from? But I guess it all adds up, like I feel like I'm fairly off on my own. I don't really do a lot of stuff like that.
But you broadcast it to the world through your films.
But I broadcast it to the world. It's the strangest thing. I just like to do my thing and share it with people. I feel like because I get the opportunity to be out there so much that I feel like by sharing it with people, I can impart some of my knowledge or adventure or inspire other people. So I guess that's for me is the big thing, is to be able to share that with people is what I enjoy doing. So whether I can help the best thing that I hear is someone saying like, oh, I've been watching your videos and because of it, I've been more successful. And I think to myself, but it makes sense. Like when I think back on my life, I was very into reading books. I was very into watching things, and those helped push me in the direction that I go. So for me, that's I guess my awareness is just giving that back.
Yeah, and I think it definitely does help. I mean, I see the stuff that you post and other guys and the stuff like Steve, a load of Steve Rinella has a huge following, and it does help. And the more great content like that there is out there, telling the right kind of messages, it can only be good for hunting. So, you might almost not want it, but we need people like you and Steve to be telling those great stories.
Yeah, and I don't dislike any, if somebody follows or whatever, that's like the reason that I put it out there is for people to be able to see it and hopefully enjoy it and maybe change people's perspective that hunt or don't hunt or whatever, just portray it in a positive light because it's something that I love. I feel like if it's something that I love, I've worked hard to get to this position to be able to share it with a lot of people. And I feel like it's a good responsibility to have, to be an ambassador for essentially promoting what I love to a larger audience. And that's the cool thing about social media and the internet and all that is people in the UK can watch solo hunters and enjoy it and think, oh, hunting's pretty cool, or that type of hunting's cool, where that wasn't even a thought even 10 years ago.
No,
I would say.
No,
it was so far removed from anything that if you never left our shoreline, it was a totally different type of hunting.
And the fact that you've got guys from the United States and vice versa from the UK having an effect in other countries as well is actually quite a crazy thing.
It is.
To get your head around that you are essentially touching people's lives across a massive ocean.
Yeah, that's really cool. One of my favorite things is to follow hunters from. Well, that's how I don't even remember when I started noticing your guys' stuff and thought, hey, these guys are doing it right. These guys have some great videos. They've got some amazing photos. Like they get it. And there's a lot of people in other places that I would never be exposed to if it weren't for that. Especially Instagram, especially is kind of out of all the social media, the one that I like 'cause it doesn't have as much clutter and crap.
We agree.
That's exactly what we say. Whenever we speak to anyone, they go, talking about social media, and we say Instagram is the one because you just don't have all of that bullshit in the news feed that you get on Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, like I don't think I I probably look at Facebook once or twice a year just to answer stacked
Really?
up people send. And I don't really, you'll be like, oh yeah, I absolutely hate it. It's just too much noise. I'm used to a life where I get away from noise.
Yeah.
And there's this app that just crams it down your throat. But I feel like at least Instagram, I can seek out the things that I'm into and really, read, and there's a lot of great content on there. I feel like there's just more quality content from people that have cool stories and cool photos and things that I like, videos and stuff like that. So as far as social media goes, that's where I would spend my time if I'm going to go on it.
Well, I enjoy your account, and I enjoy the notion of sophisticated selfies, which is how you pitch it.
Yeah. Exactly. I absolutely hate selfies, but it's my job. It's solo hunter. I film myself. And we pretty much, I was actually going through my just photos the other day because I was in the process of kind of moving and going through a bunch of old pictures from hunting, and I'm looking at them and I'm thinking about it. I haven't changed much since I was a kid. I would go out hunting by myself. I would set up the camera and take a picture. It was like nothing's different. I'm not doing anything different because technology's changed. I'm the same person. I'm doing the same exact thing. I talk and speak the same way as I did when I was 13 years old.
But now you have a beard.
Hunting. And now I just have a beard and a platform to share with other people. That's the only difference. I haven't changed hardly at all. So there's not a lot of progression in me. I just go through the pictures.
I think that's good.
It's the same. Yeah,
because people take you for exactly who you are. Remi, I think that's why people follow you. And on that note, we're going to say thank you very much for joining us. We've taken up enough of your time today, but please, if you will, at some point soon, come back on the podcast so that we can talk about all the other things that we didn't have a chance to talk about today.
Definitely, I appreciate it, and thank you guys very much for having me and taking the time to reach out. I appreciate it.
And come hunt with us in Scotland. We'll make a plan.
Definitely I will. I would love to. That'd be great.
And that's it for another 2 weeks. Well, I was actually thinking another 2 weeks, but we might put one out in a week's time, an interim one, because there's been a lot happening in the news recently in regards to new animal welfare things that are coming into the UK and other things that have been happening around the globe. So we might have one in a week's time, but we will definitely be back in our normal time slot of every second Thursday. Basically.
And I think you're going to be hearing from Corin Smith. We haven't recorded the podcast yet. He is a fishing guide here in Scotland, but has guided fishing around the world. And we're going to talk a lot about the conservation of our wild fish species and basically the state of affairs in the UK and globally right now, because he does a lot of work behind the scenes and is in the process of setting up some campaigning to basically protect our wild fish stocks.
Don't forget, you can listen to the show on nearly every single platform: YouTube, iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud. It is all on there. If you want to get in contact with the show, it's podcast at Pace Production UK, and the website is all the W's, thepacebrothers.com. I think that's nearly it. Oh yeah, and grab yourself a car sticker. We really want to make this car sticker thing work, so when we're at shows, we see loads of car stickers.
You'll hear from us in 2 weeks.